Need your daily fix of women's mixed martial arts? From the UFC, Invicta FC, Bellator, and one championship. Be in the loop, cause Golden State Media Concepts got you covered. Get your fix in women's MMA. We've got you covered on Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Women's MMA Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Network. I am your host, Arnel De Leon, and hopefully you, your friends, your family, whether you live in the States or internationally, are doing fine, you're all healthy. Social distancing is increasingly becoming more and more frustrating here, especially in the States. We're all pulling through this, and it's speculated that a lot of the states are going to reopen by mid-May. At very most, it's going to happen in June, but we're almost there. We're almost there in reopening, and everything can go back to normal. So one organization trying to get back to normal is the UFC, as there are multiple events coming up in the month of May. So far, only one card was officially announced. In the fact that we know what's going to happen. There are multiple fight cards that are going to happen in the month of May. May is only, from the time of this recording, only 2 days away. So hopefully things will get back on track here, and we'll know what's going to happen from the UFC, because there are a lot of fights. There are many fight cards happening that we don't know what's going to happen in them. So yeah, hopefully things get back to normal. So this is coming in from MMAmania.com. The coach injury, not coronavirus, behind Amanda Nunes withdrawal from UFC 249. When Ultimate Fighting Championships UFC finally found out a location for UFC 249 pay-per-view event, which was recently booked for Saturday, May 9, 2020, inside ViStar Veterans Memorial Arena in Jacksonville, Florida, it was expected to feature a women's bantamweight title bout between Amanda Nunes and Felicia Spencer. After all, Lioness has already agreed to defend her 135-pound strap against Phenom at the since postponed UFC 250 event in Brazil. Also on May 9th, so the only thing that changed was the venue. In addition, Nunes already resides in the US, making the trip even easier. But not long after the UFC 249 fight card went public, Nunes told the combat sports community that she was no longer competing because she wanted to wait for the coronavirus pandemic to blow over before committing to fight camp. Her coach says otherwise. Amanda had a small ankle injury. She preferred to stop and treat rather than running. Because we were at that stage where we didn't know what would happen, Conan Severia told Combate via BJPen.com, "We don't know if it would be May 9, where it was going to be. We had several questions and a few answers. In the training we were doing before we stopped, she got hurt and we didn't want to force it. We preferred to stop and treat for her to be ready, and she always has been, to return as soon as possible." Nunes, as we've seen, rarely fights being injured. There's been multiple occasions to which for Amanda Nunes' career that unless she's going in 100%, knowing 100% certainty of what's going to happen, then she's not going to fight. Not surprisingly, Felicia Spencer was disappointed by the news and felt a bit blindsided by the champ's revelation, especially considering Phenom had already started training camp for what is expected to be the most difficult fight of her MMA career. The latest report puts this 135 bout showdown to take place somewhat either in late June or early July. It's probably going to happen around early July, as the states are planning to reopen up by middle of May, potentially at the very late end of June. I live in the California area, so the LA County area is going to open up by mid-May, while the San Francisco Silicon Valley area, that place might reopen up its doors by early July. It's going to go off all of May. There's reports going on that all of June also, the San Francisco Silicon area is going to be closed off. So we can expect early July from the Northern California area. But there are many states like Texas. There are states like Texas and Florida that are willing to open up early as soon as middle of May. So hopefully things can go well for Amanda Nunes here. There's another interview by CBSSports.com that the two-division champ Amanda Nunes brushes off marketability comments, worries about helping LGBTQ community. Nearly 16 months after the infamous tweet, Amanda Nunes can only laugh it off and dismiss it. Amanda Nunes had just knocked out MMA women's pioneer and featherweight queen Chris Cyborg in the first round at UFC 232 to become the lone female two-division champion in UFC history. In reference to Nunes' reign of terror, which included wins over Ronda Rousey, Miesha Tate, and Valentina Shevchenko twice, sports business journalist Darren Rovell posted on Twitter that it was brutally damaging to UFC because of Amanda Nunes' supposed lack of marketability. It's a tweet that UFC President Dana White instantly took umbrage with. It's also one Roval has attempted to double down on multiple times in the aftermath. Nunes claims she missed the initial hullabaloo surrounding it and never let it bother her when she found out. So I'm living my life, and actually my life is the best right now. Nunes told CBS Sports last week, I can have whatever I want. I can do whatever I want. Nothing is going to change after reading a tweet. There's nothing where a little message is going to change it. At 31, Nunes isn't lying. A champion for 2 divisions, she has acquired almost universal praise as the greatest female fighter in the sport's history, riding a 10-fight winning streak. Nunes also engaged to UFC strawweight Nina Ansaroff, who is expected to have their first child in September. So, and about Roval's notion that Nunes is remarkable, not only does the Lioness have an endorsement deal with Modelo, she currently is juggling so many outside the cage projects that she needs to be reminded which one she was on the foot to promote. The project in question was an episode of the Quibi show, Iron Sharpens Iron, in which Nunes was paired with U.S. women's soccer star Carly Lloyd to share training secrets and mental preparation. Executive produced by NFL star Cam Newton, the episode debuted in April 20. True to form, however, for a humble fighter who grew up poor in Brazil, a few extra tastes of fame have done nothing to change her perspective, nor has it driven her to want to gloat in response to criticism of Roval or anyone else. If it is what it is, if I'm not marketable, I'm not marketable, and I'm just going to keep fighting. But I'm a fighter, and I'm the best on the planet, Nunes said. This is my job. I honestly feel like people don't understand that and only think about TV and jewelry and all the things outside. That is part of the game, but I do my job and fight and get my paycheck. I get to enjoy my life. I feel like I'm not really one who wants to compete with Ronda Rousey, Miesha Tate, or whatever. I do my job, and outside the cage, if it works out for me, I'm grateful and I'm going to do it. But it's not something where I feel like I have to do this or get this TV show. People think like, oh, Amanda is doing these things, so now everything is going to change. The life is not changing, people. You are only being stupid. Life goes on, people live it. All the work that me and my coaches put into this, we are now getting paid for everything we did then. Now, when I do all those jobs, I only want to do the best, whether it's fighting or in this new life with doing commercials and a bunch of things. Everything that I put my hands on, I want to do the best. I feel like the job pays off. So she then goes on to talk about her impact in the community. They said our daughter just talked to us and she was inspired by you and Nina, and now we are talking to her about it. That was huge for us, and in that moment, we decided to keep doing this and put ourselves out there. I know we have a lot of young girls and young boys who struggle to talk to their father and mother. Even adults are still struggling to really become who they really want to be. If I am able to help by putting my life out there so they can see what I'm not afraid of anything and nothing can stop me and nothing is bringing me down, I feel like I'm going to help people like that. My relationship with Nina is like, let's do this to change the planet and make things happen. If we tweet out and openly live our lives, a lot of people are going to change their lives. I can't wait to have her here, all the experiences I want to experience. So, the article goes on about Amanda Nunes' appeal to the general, to the general casual fans about marketability. It's been going on for years at this point, actually, on the fact that Amanda Nunes is responsible for getting rid of all the popular fighters. If Amanda Nunes were to fight against Paige Van Zandt, like, there'll be people in the media and critics who are like, oh man, this is the absolute worst fight that can happen. Talk about Amanda Nunes destroying the career, defeating the most marketable star out there in the UFC, Paige Van Zandt. Amanda Nunes is taking the stance that I kind of agree with. It's the same kind of stance that a lot of MMA purists and those who relate us like Chael Sonnen and like and the Ben Askrens and the Colby Covingtons really are opposed with. It's like you got fighters like Chael Sonnen, Ben Askren, Colby Covington who understand that you understand that to get things going your way, you have to have some marketability. That's why almost every fighter and like even like low level like celebrities and musicians in the LA area are all trying to create a brand for themselves. I got friends who are trying to create a brand for themselves and are trying to come across as marketable as they can in the Los Angeles area. And you got people like Amanda Nunes who simply just don't care, but our talents are so good that it kind of overshadows their marketability. And I find it very interesting that fighters like Kevin Lee, Michael Chiesa, Kobe Covington, all of Team Alpha Male, these fighters who aren't the very best at their own sports have to be the ones who have to rely on trash talking and an over reliance on the ability to go put themselves out there in social media and trying to be like promo talkers. Those are the ones who end up not succeeding, but Amanda Nunes is. I find it very interesting. So after the short break, we'll be covering some more MMA news right here at the GSMC Women's MMA Podcast.
You really can't underestimate the importance of having the right creative work for your brand or your product. Whether it's a logo, a website, a book cover, or an ad campaign, you really need a quality design to make that big difference pop and deliver your overall engagement and success in a competitive market. That's where Design Crowd comes in. Design Crowd has over 750,000 designers from Sydney to San Francisco ready to help you with awesome creative ideas. They make crowdsourcing work for you. So if you need a logo or you're working on your creative branding, you can go to designcrowd.com and post a brief describing the design you need. And then within about 2 to 7 days, you'll receive up to over 100 different designs from designers around the world. Then you pick the best design and approve payment to the designer. So you're only paying for the design that you want. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of freelancing and out of crowdsourcing. And you don't have to be a huge company like Harvard Business School to use Design Crowd, although they have used it as well. You can start a project on Design Crowd for as little as $99. And if you go right now to designcrowd.com/health and wellness or enter the promo code health and wellness on their website, then our health and wellness listeners will receive up to $150 off of your design project. That's designcrowd.com/health and wellness or entering that promo code health and wellness.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA, from the UFC to extreme cage fighting. They got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
And welcome back to the show here. So UFC 249 is right around the corner, and the only women's matchup there is Carla Esparza versus Michelle Waterson. And in that fight, I'm pegging down Michelle Waterson as a favorite though, but that's just me. According to FanDuel Sportsbook, Carla Esparza is coming in as a favorite at a -152 against Michelle Waterson's +130, and Carla Esparza is expected to win the bout via decision. I expect it to be a lot more lower, because the thing with Michelle, this isn't really new for Michelle Waterson. She goes into a lot of fights, I believe, often as the underdog when she really shouldn't be. Her fight against Joanna Jędrzejczyk, I think Michelle Waterson came to that fight with the wrong strategy. There's no reason for Waterson to go for an outside the pocket boxing match against Joanna and trying to go for these high angle high kicks. There's no reason for Waterson to do that. I think she fought against Joanna Jędrzejczyk the wrong way. And if Waterson fights with the wrong strategy yet again against Esparza, if Waterson is if she's way too inviting for Esparza to go in for a takedown, I think things can go down for her though. So how do I expect this fight going to end off? I can expect these two trying to go for, a striking exchange early on. I think Waterson beats out Esparza in terms of striking. Carla Esparza, although she's been improving a lot with her striking ability, especially from her more recent performances, her boxing has improved tremendously. But I think that Michelle Waterson has the same skill set that Joanna has in terms of being able to box outside the pocket and keep in range and is a good counter fighter. And so What I see here is Michelle Waterson trying to duck and evade Carla Esparza's takedowns and trying to avoid closing in the distance against Esparza. But even if Esparza were to close in the distance, Michelle Waterson would still win out in the 50-50 exchanges. Yes, Esparza is surprisingly a really strong fighter. She's really strong in her dirty boxing and ability to go and take people down. She's surprisingly a lot more stronger in the clinch that people don't really expect from Esparza. But I think when it comes to the clinch and being able to defend themselves properly from a takedown, I can see Waterson stopping Esparza. Esparza is a top-class athlete, but Michelle Waterson's jiu-jitsu game is very underrated. And so in a striking exchange, I would say Michelle Waterson would defeat out Esparza if Esparza plays towards Michelle Waterson's type of fight and not trying to trying to fight outside the pockets. Carla Esparza has to be incredibly aggressive in this fight against Waterson, and that she has to go close in the distance and try to go for. Hopefully, Esparza works. Hopefully, Esparza in her training camp. In order for her to really win this fight, she has to be exceptionally amazing in being able to fight inside the pocket. Because Waterson, even though she much prefers fighting outside the pocket, though, I can see Waterson defeating out Esparza in these close 50-50 exchanges inside the pockets. And even in the Muay Thai, and even clinching, Michelle Waterson has really underrated Muay Thai. So, Esparza versus Waterson, this can go really either way. I think Waterson wins this fight through being able to be patient and being able to fight really smart and not trying to be too aggressive. Carla Esparza, though, she has to be incredibly aggressive towards Waterson here. And depending on how things go, if Esparza were to take down Waterson in the first round and Waterson doesn't defend herself properly, Esparza does win the fight via decision. I don't think this fight's going to end via knockout. I really don't. None of these women are exceptional knockout artists. I think Waterson's a great striker and Esparza's a great grappler, but I think Waterson's grappling is good enough to defend herself in the takedowns. And her striking is better than Esparza. So my prediction, Waterson defeats Esparza after 3 rounds of action. If Esparza is not tentative and she's very aggressive and she's aiming for the takedown immediately, or she's immediately going for clinches or going for single legs, then Esparza is going to win this fight. Win this fight easily. Esparza should try to take down Waterson as early as she can in the first round, so momentum can carry over towards the second and third. Because if it just turns out with Waterson just keeps hitting Esparza from the distance with long jabs and quick jabs and going for quick combinations, trying to go for low kicks there, then Waterson's going to win this fight easily without doubt. And so, it's very disappointing that, there's only gonna be, not Michelle Waterson versus Carla Esparza is gonna be the only major, women's fight happening in the events. Because, Rose Namajunas versus Jessica Andrade, that fight was supposed to happen, like 2 weeks ago. It was gonna happen, but because of some unknown reason that we still don't know about, Rose Namajunas is not able to is not able to make her comeback against Jessica Andrade. So that fight got scrapped. Joanna Jędrzejczyk is out, and Weili Zhang's also out. She's went back to China, so there's no way she's going to accept coming back to the States after this whole coronavirus thing blows over. Amanda Nunes, being a 2-divisional champion, has 2 belts and she's occupying 2 different divisions, and she's out of it because she's worried about the whole coronavirus issue, and also she's coming off an injury, and Amanda Nunes doesn't want to fight unless she knows 100% of what she's going into, which means Valentina Shevchenko. So Valentina Shevchenko is out there promoting her movie, and she also just got through another injury and is expected to fight late 2020. That's when we can expect Valentina back. So all the UFC Women's Champions are not available, and all the title contenders who are supposed to fight the champions are not available because they want to fight against the champion. Which leaves us with Michelle Waterson versus Carla Esparza. This is coming in from MMAnews.com that Michelle Waterson explains why she took the reported May 9 fight versus Carla Esparza. On Thursday night, Michelle Waterson was a guest on SiriusXM's MMA Tonight and opened up on her decision to take the fight against Esparza. With so much uncertainty surrounding the event, Waterson told hosts RJ Clifford and Jimmy Smith that there was no hesitation on her end to take the fight. And then in the interview, the transcript says, absolutely not. The whole situation with the coronavirus And with the worldwide lockdown, this is history in the making, and if there's history made, I'll love to be part of it. I understand and know that Dana White and the UFC and everybody involved is going to do their best to make it happen for a number of reasons, to be able to give fighters and the UFC employees an opportunity to make money, to try and stimulate the economy, to try and keep things chugging, rolling along. There's a lot of things going on, but I think it's important for us to keep fighting. That's what we do. We're fighters. It's a bit different as a professional fighter than would be a professional NBA player or a football player. Those things get put on hold, but they get paid huge salaries with huge bonuses. As a fighter, that's not the same. So we need to continue to train and continue to fight to make money and support our family. Training without having a set date in place on her fight was presented as a challenge for Waterson, but she told SiriusXM it's a balancing act. It's really a balancing act, and I think it's more of a test of mental strength than it would be anything else. I think it's important to understand your body. It's a different fight camp because we're all quarantined. It's not like I can spar twice a week. It's not like I can have a handful of fighters to drill with. It's me and my husband. My coaches come in maybe once a week at my place, which we're actually blessed because we have a home gym there that pretty much has everything we need. It's a different world, and it's definitely a different type of fight camp, but I'm definitely excited to take on the challenge. With the circumstances being unfortunately unique, Michelle Waterson is maintaining a different kind of fight camp, and her goal is to keep fighting because, as she puts it, that's what fighters do. And I've talked about this before many times, in that UFC fighters don't get paid that much. They really don't. UFC fighters are mixed martial artists and a lot of boxers. They're putting their bodies in the line, possibly risking concussion, risking long-term health effects, in order to go and provide for the family. In UFC being the biggest mixed martial arts organization in the world, these fighters barely even scratch $1 million. That's the weird, sad truth about it. Ronda Rousey, who's probably the biggest star of all time in UFC history, has gone on to talk about how much the WWE pays their performers a lot more than the UFC does. And Conor McGregor is probably, I say, the most smartest mixed martial artist in the world, because he was able to get one big fight. He was able to get one big fight from boxing, made $100 million in his fight against Floyd Mayweather. And so he doesn't have to worry about the money for the most part, but all these fighters, they have to, because even a champion like Valentina Shevchenko, if she gets paid $200K a year, and that's even before taxes. I got friends who make a lot more money, who do a lot less risky things than these fighters do, who make more money than these champions. And for Michelle Waterson, she's doing double duty. She works as a commentator, she works as an analyst, she works as a fighter, and so she's making as much money as she can for her family. So I can respect that. And it's kind of sad. I talked about this in another podcast, how a fighter like Gilbert Burns has to scratch and claw his way and fight with people outside the top 5 rankings in order to go make money. So, and Gilbert Burns has to follow the same path that Esparza and Michelle Waterson are taking. In that, yes, you can make a whole lot of money fighting against people who are part of the top 5. But if you can't do that, you have to settle with somebody who's ranked 6, 7, 8, 9, or 10. Because that's how the fight game works. It's sad, but it's true. So you listen to the GSMC Women's MMA podcast, coming back right after the short break with some more MMA news.
I want to talk to you guys about this amazing product I've been using lately called Hydrant. If you're like me and you want to kick the coffee habit, but you're worried about your energy levels depleting, to avoid the morning sluggishness and that midday slump, you need to make sure you're hydrated. It's super important. And that's where I've been using Hydrant. And for 25% off your first order, you can go to drinkhydrant.com and enter promo code GSMC at checkout. Hydrant is basically flavored electrolyte packets you mix directly into your water to make hydrating your body easy and delicious. And what I love about Hydrant, it's backed by research. The formula was developed by Oxford scientists to provide perfectly balanced, efficient hydration. Again, that's drinkhydrant.com and enter promo code GSMC for 25% off your first order. Another really cool thing about Hydrant, there's no synthetic colors or artificial sweeteners. The formula is vegan and you can choose between 3 different flavors or a variety pack. So for all my vegan friendly fellows out there, this one's for you. Again, this is drinkhydrant.com and enter promo code GSMC.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
And welcome back to the show. So we're discussing Michelle Waterson and Carla Esparza coming up for the next upcoming UFC event. And now transitioning from the UFC to Bellator. This is being reported in from BloodyElbow.com that Bellator champion Lima Lay McFarlane among those accusing former coach of sexual abuse. Lima Lay McFarlane and two others filed a lawsuit against a former school basketball coach accusing him of grooming and sexual abuse. And so earlier this week, Hawaii News Now reported that Bellator flyweight champion Lima Lay McFarlane and two others filed a lawsuit against Dwayne Yuen, a former basketball coach at Punhao School in Honolulu. McFarlane joined Punhao as a kindergartner and graduated in 2009. McFarlane's lawsuit accuses Yuen of beginning to groom her and her sister in 2003. When the girls were 12 and 14 years old, in the lawsuit, the sisters state that Yuen forced the sisters to touch his genitals, offered cash for sex acts, and sent them explicit photos of himself. A third Punhao student, who was not named in the lawsuit, accused Yuen of sexual abuse and claimed that Yuen sent her threatening texts and phone messages. Transcripts of those messages were attached to the lawsuit. Yuen, who has not been arrested or charged in connection to the accusations included in the lawsuit, did not comment on the story when offered the chance by HNN. Punhao School commented on the story in an email to parents and teachers, saying that they were heartbroken by the account of the plaintiff. It's, in no uncertain terms, Punhao stands with survivors of sexual abuse everywhere, and we respect the courage it takes to report these incidents, read part of the statement. The McFarlane sisters have claimed they reported Yuen to school administrators over 15 years ago. McFarlane told HNN, and there was no follow-up from Punhao on that time. I truly believe and know that they all knew what was going on, and it was just like the culture there, said McFarlane. Yesterday, McFarlane took to Instagram to share more of her story. Even though I've been a strong voice for other Wahin Toa, creating my scholarship for Native girls, teaching self-defense to them, leading healing retreats for women, I never really shared my own story. To be honest, I was in denial, and I didn't want to admit that it affected me as much as it did. I have to be strong. I'm a professional fighter. I can't show any vulnerability. I can't give him the satisfaction of knowing how much he infiltrated my thoughts, relationships, and life even 15 years later. But here we are. The time is now. And for all the trolls saying, why did you wait so long, idiots? We didn't wait. My sister reported him to the school right when it happened, and they swept it under the rug. Punhao knew I was a victim and witnessed my own sister's abuse, and it didn't even bother to check on me. As a result, we were retaliated against by him and the basketball program and had to see him every day. Still out on campus around minors, my sister and I tried our best to move on with our lives until it resurfaced in 2018 when more victims came forward. Punhao claimed that they were doing an internal investigation but again didn't contact me and refused to share the results of the investigation with my sister. Disgustingly, we found out that he's still coaching and teaching minor girls. So here we are now, 15 years later, seeking justice together. We can't get away with this anymore. Dwayne Yuen, your time is up. P.S. I chose this picture not only for the solidarity that my family and I have together through this process, but to show you how old me and Mahina were when the sexual grooming and abuse started. I was in the 6th grade, and here she is as a freshman. So you can go look at her Instagram, and you can go see the pictures. But yikes, this really is awful, and hopefully justice will be served. As reported by Hawaii News Now, in wake of suits, Punhao says more sex assault allegations have come to light. Honolulu, Hawaii News Now. Days after two standout athletes filed lawsuits alleging sexual misconduct by a former basketball coach, Punhao School is reporting more sex assault allegations that have recently come to light. The school sent out an email on Sunday saying this time the allegations involve a former faculty member and basketball coach. Both cases happened in the 1970s, the school said, and have been reported to police. As we now proceed to reckon with the past and our responsibilities, we pledge our respect and support for these courageous members of our Punhao Ohana. The school wrote in the email, "The new allegations come after several former players, including MMA champ Lima Lay McFarland and Shauna Lay Cuejo, filed sex abuse lawsuits against former basketball coach Dwayne Yuen and the school. Cuejo is widely regarded as one of the best high school players in Hawaii's history. She and an unnamed woman accused Yuen of predatory behavior and sex abuse between 2003 and 2008. Hopefully all things go well, and instead of seeing McFarland in court, instead we see her defend her flyweight title in Bellator." So Bellator hasn't announced any events coming up for the month of May. UFC is leading the way when it comes to mixed martial arts events. As far as like, well, when can we have an MMA event happening? Well, it all is based around UFC. We don't have any news being reported that other MMA organizations are pressing to come back during the month of May. But it is announced, though, that there will be a women's strawweight title bout at a UFC Fight Night event on May 23. Now, where's the location? Not really sure where it's going to be at, but probably it's going to happen in Jacksonville, Florida. Involving Hannah Cyphers versus Mackenzie Dern. That fight is going to be really fun to watch. And so far, that fight, along with other fight cards that include Walt Harris versus Overeem and Rafa Asansa versus Cody Garbrandt, all those fights are to be announced so far. We're still unsure of what the state of the states are going to be when it comes to the coronavirus pandemic, but we can only wait so far. One organization not set to come back would be the PFL. In light of the COVID-19 pandemic, the Professional Fighters League has rescheduled our upcoming 2020 season until spring 2021. PFL is a global MMA league with athletes from over 25 countries, and our decision is guided by the health and safety of our fighters, fans, partners, and event personnel. The PFL mission is to evolve and grow the sport of MMA, and we look forward to staging our unique sports season formats with regular season, playoff, and championship events on ESPN platforms next year. PFL has always been focused on delivering the best made-for-TV MMA product, and will continue to deliver the most innovative fighting experience going forward. Fans can also look toward the PFL and elevating our roster, and a new championship-caliber fighter, singing such as Rory McDonald. For the remainder of 2020, the PFL will support our fighters with a monthly cash stipend to help provide some relief during these challenging times. In addition, for sports fans who we know are looking for compelling content, the PFL will deliver new original programming across ESPN and PFL platforms. So the PFL is under postponement right now. It's so strange knowing this. It's so strange when it comes towards the scheduling of events here. Because, once again, we're only in April. We're in the month of April. We're in the month of April, and so far, these sporting events, including even schools, are also being canceled for the remainder of the school year, which is very strange to me. That I'm not really sure the logistics of all that. So even though, because here's the thing, America's reopening up again within the next 2 months. Oh, that's the idea, right? California has created, the governor of Florida has created a 4-step plan into trying to organize California to have it go back to normal again. And San Francisco, that is going to go a lot more later. And so what I'm really interested about this is that while the UFC is going on, while they have some mixed martial artists there, no, the thing is, Amanda Nunes is ultra worried about the coronavirus thing, and even said herself that I don't feel comfortable fighting until the coronavirus pandemic thing goes under. And considering the fact that Amanda Nunes is a former champion, that she's a former champion, and she's making money through advertising, and even though people have said that Amanda Nunes isn't all that marketable, Amanda Nunes is finding alternative ways in trying to make money. She's been commercial, she's done advertising, she's done a 10-fight win streak, she's won knockout of the night and fight of the night multiple times, performance of the night bonuses. She's a double champion. So Amanda Nunes, she's all fine. But I don't know about the other fighters. I don't know how the women's champions from Bellator or PFL are doing. Like I said before, Valentina Shevchenko makes $100K per year just by fighting. She only makes $100K per year by fighting, and we see the PFL be postponed. We see Bellator be postponed. We see other MMA organizations also be postponed. Boxing events are being postponed. We've got promoters who are saying, "Oh man, we're canceling our entire year because none of the fighters feel safe or prepped up, or they're not having the proper fight camp." But we're opening up possibly in 2 months. So what goes on then? Does that mean Does that mean there's like no Bellator then, and there's no Bellator, there's no PFL, there's no NBA, there's no other sporting events happening other than UFC for the next 6 months until till spring 2021? That's very that's very strange to me. I'm mostly surprised that I'm not seeing a lot more backlash from the fighters from these organizations. Typically, you hear a lot of fighters talk about how bad the UFC is when it comes to organizing these events, and whatever your opinion on that is. Whatever your opinion is on the fact that the largest MMA organization are not paying their fighters all that well. Once again, Valentina Shevchenko, she's only being paid $100K per year despite being one of the best women's fighters in the entire world. Well, at least the UFC, they're giving opportunities to fighters to be able to make money. The PFL, Bellator, I'm not really so sure. So coming back after the short break here, we'll be covering some more MMA news.
You really can't underestimate the importance of having the right creative work for your brand or your product. Whether it's a logo, a website, a book cover, or an ad campaign, you really need a quality design to make that big difference pop and deliver your overall engagement and success in a competitive market. That's where Design Crowd comes in. Design Crowd has over 750,000 designers from Sydney to San Francisco ready to help you with awesome creative ideas. They make crowdsourcing work for you. So if you need a logo or you're working on your creative branding, you can go to designcrowd.com and post a brief describing the design you need. And then within about 2 to 7 days, you'll receive up to over 100 different designs from designers around the world. Then you pick the best design and approve payment to the designer. So you're only paying for the design that you want. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of freelancing and out of crowdsourcing. And you don't have to be a huge company like Harvard Business School to use Design Crowd, although they have used it as well. You can start a project on Design Crowd for as little as $99. And if you go right now to designcrowd.com/health and wellness or enter the promo code health and wellness on their website, then our health and wellness listeners will receive up to $150 off of your design project. That's designcrowd.com/health and wellness or entering that promo code health and wellness.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back. So we talked about how Amanda Nunes, she's going to be financially fine for herself, considering the fact that she's a double world champion and she's one of the most dominant women's champions of all time. Probably the best ever women's fighter of all time in mixed martial arts. But, while she's making bank with commercials, advertisements, and, being one of the best fighters ever, she's pretty much got her bank all set up. She's made the money when it comes to mixed martial arts. But one fighter who isn't as lucky as Amanda Nunes is Felicia Spencer. Felicia Spencer reacts to a featherweight title bout being postponed. Felicia Spencer was scheduled to challenge Amanda Nunes for the featherweight title on May 9. However, Nunes recently stated that the fight is off. Spencer told BJPen.com, "I was definitely disappointed because when you get a date, you work to be ready. In my head, I was preparing to fight in 3 weeks. We've been jumping through hoops to be ready, doing things on my own. I was ready to get the fight done and go along my way. It was disappointing that it would be extended." Spencer was named the number one contender shortly after her fight at UFC Norfolk, a first-round TKO win over Zara Fern. She detailed the difficulties of an extended training camp on her body. It's also not extended to the point where I can just relax. It's just a few more weeks, like another month. Maybe I'm 6 weeks out. Maybe I'm 7 weeks out. It's not far enough away that I can pull back. It is going to be an extended camp. I'll be training for this fight for like 11 weeks now. Spencer explained, I think it's harder on my body as I had an 8-week camp for Norfolk. I then had 2 weeks off, got the fighter offer, and had another fight camp now in 8 weeks. Now I'm just going to have to stay in camp and be in it for an undetermined amount of time. It may be 12 or 15 week camp. That will be harder on my body. I can't take a break right now because I'll be fighting in June probably. It's too late. It's too late to take a break, so it would have been nice to know a month ago. So if she had no intention of fighting on May 9, I wish she would have said it sooner. It is what it is. Spencer also clarifies any confusion about a replacement opponent on interim title fights. There was never any talk of that. I don't think the fans would want that either. With that fight with Amanda Nunes being maybe just postponed an extra month, an interim title bout wouldn't be the right move. She says that, yet Justin Gaethje versus Tony Ferguson's happening. So, Felicia, for as much as I want to agree with you, that's not how the UFC operates. I don't want an interim title fight. I want Amanda Nunes. I want Amanda, and sooner rather than later. Due to the coronavirus pandemic, the UFC, like many other promotions, have been forced to adjust their schedule. The main night card was officially been titled UFC 249. Spencer has been told to be ready for a date in June. So she's told to be ready to fight in June, but as said by Amanda Nunes, she's unsure of coming back into fighting because of recent injury. And honestly, Amanda Nunes has a tendency of not fighting if she doesn't know if she's 100% in it. And so with the whole coronavirus issue, with the injury happening, I don't see Felicia Spencer having her fight with Amanda Nunes anytime soon. I really don't. It has to be late 2020 or early 2021, which is really bad for Spencer, because how the heck is she going to make any money? She can't. She really can't make money. And so she has to go hold off and fight potentially Amanda Nunes maybe early next year. So from what I'm seeing right now, I can see like some member of the UFC brass being like, okay, Spencer, Nunes isn't available, but in order for you to make some money, you gotta go fight this other woman over here. And it's honestly not right. It really isn't. If that happens, then like I understand why Felicia Spencer would be really upset about this, because yeah, she's paying for training camp. Here's something that people don't realize: you're paying a substantial amount of your fight money towards training camp, and then after the fight, you pay back some money to the training camp. That's how it works. And so, Felicia Spencer, she's extending her training camp constantly for a fight that she doesn't know even is going to happen, or she's even not sure who her opponent is. So she can't even train properly. She's training at her home gym. She's still paying her coach, because coaches have to be paid. They should be paid for all the training they do. And then she's set up in a position where she has to fight somebody that she really shouldn't fight in order for her to make money. She's probably, here's the truth: if she were to fight someone else other than Amanda Nunes, she'll probably be paid like $60K a year, $60K, and then she only made about $60,000 off this one fight in the year of 2020. And then a lot of that has to go towards her coaches and stuff. So she's only coming home with like $35K, maybe $40K. And then she has to go pay again for another set of training camp, because we don't know when Amanda is going to fight her. And if it were to happen early 2021, it's frustrating. I feel frustrated for Felicia Spencer, because her back is on the wall and there's nothing she can really do. There really is nothing. According to Amanda Nunes' coach, though, he says that Nunes is prepped up for a fight in June, maybe July. Hopefully things can go well for her, and we can see that fight happening, because some fighters have to get paid during this time. There are a lot of people right now who are currently unemployed right now. I lost some money from this. My brother, who owns his own business, lost some money from this. I got family members who work as engineers in the Silicon Valley area. They're not making any money. And do you know how expensive it is to live in the Silicon Valley area? Insane. It is absolutely insane. If you're not making six figures, here's the thing. a lot of these fighters, there's no way, here's how hard it is to make money in the Northern California area. If you're Amanda Nunes, there's no way you can live in the Silicon Valley area. I'm being honest. There's no, you just can't, because everyone there has to be stupidly rich. There are people have to be stupidly rich, have to be academically intelligent as all heck, or be smart, savvy people, or be like smart, savvy business people. That's how it is. So, hopefully things go up for Felicia Spencer here and she'll make some money. But in a more positive light here, Laura Sanko hopes to be UFC's first female color commentator. In a recent chat with Mike Bowen of MMA Junkie, UFC broadcaster Laura Sanko expressed her desire to become the UFC's first female color commentator. My dream would be to eventually be part of that booth, Sanko told MMA Junkie. When breaking down and discussing fights, Sanko leans on her own fighting experience. One of the things that's kind of allowed me to be successful in this job, despite no broadcasting training whatsoever, is I do really understand the fight game. Over the years, I feel like behind the scenes in production meetings and even just hanging out, I've been able to find and demonstrate to all the guys, whether it be Paul Felder or Dominic Cruz or Michael Bisping, that I really do know what the hell I'm talking about. My hope is that one day I can have a little bit even more of a voice there, but any moment of time I can spend there talking to those guys is pretty awesome. While Sanko does have some experience in the booth during fights, having commentated alongside former UFC commentator Jimmy Smith during the Invicta FC Phoenix Series 1 and 2 tournaments, she aspires to do so in the UFC. I'll love that, Sanko said. That is definitely the goal. I don't think it's one that's necessarily going to happen anytime soon, but it's one that I'm working towards, and I hope one day to make it come to fruition. It's tough though. The hurdles that are in my way are not necessarily one people would assume. Like, oh hey, don't want any women. That's not the case. I think they really like to have a former UFC fighter there, and there's a lot of misspellings here in this report. I think they really like to have a higher profile UFC fighter there, so that's one thing that doesn't happen on my resume. Sanko is also a critical part of the Contender Series, handling all the media post-fight interviews. I like to think that over the years with the UFC, with Contender Series, I've shown my fight knowledge over the interviews I do. I can tell that over time, people have started to realize I do really understand the game and can provide on-the-spot analysis on what's happening in the fights. Personally, I wouldn't mind hearing her on commentary. I really don't mind having more diversity as opposed to different voices and talking heads talking about the world of mixed martial arts. I like hearing, I like hearing journeyman fighters like Michael Bisping. I like hearing current fighters like Daniel Cormier, who's a world champion. I like hearing fighters from the women's division like Michelle Waterson talk about her experiences when it comes to mixed martial arts. And also, considering the fact that Goldberg and Joe Rogan are not together anymore, and that he's trying to develop a dynamic between him with Dominic Cruz or him with Daniel Cormier. I like to hear a new dynamic duo, a new team that I would love to enjoy to listen to on the UFC commentary booth, and I wouldn't mind, a woman doing it. I really wouldn't. So coming back right after a short break here, we'll be covering some more mixed martial arts news here, and also Valentina Shevchenko. You get the opportunity to learn how to be a fighter just like Valentina if you donate right now. You're listening to the GSMC MMA podcast, coming back right after the short break.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
And welcome back. So, this is being reported in by WMARankings.com that PFL lightweight signee Laura Sanchez talks training and working during the pandemic. So, although the 2020 season got postponed, the PFL's new signee lightweight Laura Sanchez works around the clock from her Milwaukee home, assisting engineers as a field support specialist for GE Healthcare. I support engineers in the Washington, D.C. area, Virginia Beach, and Richmond, Virginia. They're always on the road, so I'm always handling their administrative work. Engineers go to hospitals to work on equipment. They will call me if they need something updated in the system. We keep track of all the units. They are the diagnostic imaging field engineers. They work on CT MRI machines. If they order a part and need me to follow up on it, if there's no stock and they need something escalated, I work on that. Sanchez receives less calls than before the COVID-19 pandemic since some hospitals are closed and engineers aren't allowed. Hospitals ask for engineers' assistance if the machines are completely shut down. GE Healthcare helped build some respiratory machines in Madison, Wisconsin because they had a shortage of respiratory machines. Volunteers are trained for a few days to help build the machines that were in demand. The field support specialist team relieves the administrative work from engineers, and at times Sanchez gets called from engineers who need to unwind from the daily tasks. If they are a little bit stressed, they call me to help with that stress, so that's something I like to do because they're out there while everyone is supposed to be at home. They are still out there going to these hospitals. Sanchez will be working from home until May 26, as Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers extended the stay-at-home order. An estimated 1,500 protesters against the order railed outside the Capitol building on Friday. When Governor Evers was talking about expanding until May 26, people began protesting. I don't get that at all. The concerns about people's health versus I just don't want to sit at home, or maybe people are talking about the small businesses. I get that they're suffering, but I think people's health is more important. While I agree people's health is important, people's financial situations are also incredibly important. Like for me, like for me personally, and also along with me and my friends who live in Southern California or Northern California area. We need to make money somehow. We really do. Like, even I'm getting sick and tired of this. And I would love to physically go, because I also work as a court reporter, and without any courts happening, because of the whole coronavirus issue, I'm barely scraping by, buying the most cheapest food I can at a Walmart or McDonald's. And it gets to you sometimes. It really does. And so, I'm happy for Laura at the very least, though, and that she's got an alternative career other than fighting. I talked about it before. I talked about it a bunch of times. I love it when fighters have another aspect of their life in which they can go make money from. Because UFC, as great as it would be to make $1 million, to make 7 figures as a UFC fighter, hopefully, the possibility of a lot of these fighters getting to that point is very rare, even if you are a champion like Amanda Nunes or Valentina Shevchenko. Even Ronda Rousey complains about the fact that she didn't make that much money as the UFC champion. It's great for fighters to have alternative ways to make money. If you guys haven't seen it yet, go type up Miles Jury on YouTube, and he goes into detail on how much money he makes as a UFC fighter, as a journeyman fighter, which is the role that a lot of these fighters are in the UFC and in all of mixed martial arts. If you can find an alternative way to make money, great for you. And by the way, engineers, they make bank. I'm impressed that Laura, here's not a guarantee you, Laura makes more money doing her job in engineering than she ever did at all, doing mixed martial arts. If she were to be a full-time mixed martial artist or a full-time engineer, she would make multiples of what she would make in mixed martial arts if she were to dedicate full time towards being an engineer. So good for Laura. At least I know for sure there's one fighter who's not going to struggle financially hard in the coming years. So I talked about in another podcast about the All-In Challenge, and that you have the opportunity, you, the mixed martial arts fan, has the opportunity to possibly book your own fights for a UFC event. So this is called Dana White and Halle Berry present the ultimate UFC experience. UFC President Dana White and Academy Award-winning actress Halle Berry are teaming up to present the most exclusive UFC experience beyond your wildest dreams. The duo is offering one lucky winner the chance to pick any Las Vegas UFC pay-per-view event and an all-expense-paid trip that includes a once-in-a-lifetime experience of meeting Halle Berry and going out to eat with her. Yeah! So there's an attempt for Halle Berry to promote her MMA movie, Bruised, starring Valentina Shevchenko, to which Halle Berry is playing the role as a mixed martial arts fighter who's also a mother, and her name is Jackie Justice. And other than the fact that Jackie Justice sounds so cringy, and I would absolutely not want to watch a character or take a character whose name is called Jackie Justice seriously, she's doing this challenge along with Dana White in order to promote her movie, and also it's a good way to go and help communities. Because all the money that's going to be donated goes towards Feeding America, Meals on Wheels, World Central Kitchen, and No Kid Hungry. I recommend if you have nothing to do, go volunteer for Meals on Wheels in the LA County area. If you live in the California area, Meals on Wheels are hiring a lot. They really are hiring volunteer workers or drivers in the San Francisco Silicon Valley area and the LA County area. So if you want to do something during the coronavirus pandemic and you want to go make a difference and help out the community, I recommend applying for Meals on Wheels or any of these other organizations and make a difference. Try to make a positive difference. And so with $10, you get 10 entries. With $25, you get 25 entries. With $50, you get 100 entries. With $100, you get 200 entries. And the more entries you get from this raffle, the more you are increasing your chances of being picked. And hopefully, you get to go out with Halle Berry in a dinner for two, in a dinner for three technically, because you have the opportunity to bring in one extra guest. And you get to go and be part of the booking committee. So Dana White explained this, that you will be in a room with 3 other people, including Dana White, 4 other people, including Sean Shelby, Dana White, and some other people. And you get to go give an opinion out there on what fight you want to see. But here's the thing, you just get to give an opinion. They can just veto you. So if you're the type of person who's like, I want to see Halle Berry fight for real against Valentina for real in a real UFC event, Dana White and Shelby are just going to give you a growling stare, and they're just going to say, okay, thank you for expressing your opinion, but shut up. That's what's probably going to happen to you. But yeah, not only do you have the opportunity to go on a date with Halle Berry with a friend and meet up with Dana White, you get to be part of the post-fight press conference, you get to take a couple pictures with the fighters, you get to be there for the weigh-ins, you get a lunch. Go to allinchallenge.com and in the search bar type in UFC and you'll see all the awards you get if you were to be picked. You get a private tour of the UFC headquarters and you get lunch. All these prizes you get to do with a friend. You get a 3-night stay hotel at a 4-star hotel. You get a 3-night stay at a 4-star hotel in Vegas. You get round trip business class tickets to Las Vegas. You get to attend the post press conference event. You get to come in for the weigh-ins. You get to go inside the octagon with Dana White post main event. I'm not really sure what exactly that means. So after the main event and then Joe Rogan's interviewing somebody and Dana White has the belt, are you going to be right next to Dana White as he's like, okay, I'm going to give the belt to Conor over here? You get to receive your own personalized fight kit. You get your own UFC merchandising. You get to have somebody sign merchandising for you. So if you want to meet your favorite fighters, meet Dana White, meet Halle Berry, go to the after party, hopefully, receive a replica belt. That's also a prize. Oh, here's the thing. You get 1 boombox. If you were to go to this event, if you were to, win the raffle, one of your awards is you get a Bump Box Freestyle V3's Bluetooth boombox courtesy of Trey the Truth. I don't know who that is, man, but you get to get a boombox that's worth $600. So, if that's your thing, then, okay, sign up for it. Another prize here. So another prize that you get on top of going to the UFC event, booking committee, getting free lunch, hotel, trip to Vegas, getting a boombox, meeting Dana White, going to the weigh-ins, post-press conference stuff, going to the octagon with them, getting signed merchandise. You also get the chance to get MMA training with Forrest Griffin and Valentina Shevchenko at a UFC, a fight academy building, one of their UFC development centers. You get to train with former light heavyweight champion Forrest Griffin and current women's flyweight champion Valentina Shevchenko. So if you want to go out there and train with the very best, with former champions, current champions, now's your opportunity. Go to allinchallenge.com, type up UFC, and you'll get the opportunity to put in a raffle at that site. You're listening to the GSMC Women's MMA podcast, coming back after the short break.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's GSMCpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
And so, you think you know mixed martial arts? You think you know the history of the UFC? Well, let's test it out right now. As customary on all my podcasts here, I will challenge your overall knowledge of mixed martial arts through its history, and let's see how knowledgeable you are of the sports. Question 1. Quiz. UFC 1, The Beginning. Who were the main 3 commentators during the first ever UFC 1 event? I know, pretty, and note, one of them was actually female. So we talked recently about how there's going to be a first ever UFC female commentator. No, there actually was already a UFC commentator who was female. She didn't know what she was talking about, and she said she looked like a deer in the headlights. But no, for the first ever UFC event, there was indeed a woman commentator. Once again, question was, who were the main 3 commentators during the UFC 1 event? The answer is Bill Wallace, Kathy Long, and Jim Brown. The team of Bill Wallace, Kathy Long, and Jim Brown were put together as an electric mix of experience and passion. Wallace was an undefeated kickboxer and karate practitioner who was also a highly respected coach of many MMA disciplines. Long was 18-1 female kickboxer who later went on to fight in a brief MMA career. NFL Hall of Famer Jim Brown was brought in as he was a big boxing fan and also helped bring some star power to the event. Despite a lack of experience, Brown would be the only member of the team to continue his role past the first event. Because Bill Wallace and Kathy Long, hear them, listen to them on commentary, and it's so experimental that it's hard not to watch or listen to them for the UFC 1 show. But yeah, UFC 1 had a female commentator. Maybe in the year 2020, you might have another female commentator. Who knows? Which of these fighters does not fight with the name Pitbull? Oh man, Pitbull, the most generic of all nicknames. Chris Myra, Andrei Arlovsky, Thiago Alves, or Ross Pearson? Which of these fighters does not have the nickname the Pitbull? Chris Myra, Andrei Arlovsky, Thiago Alves, or Ross Pearson? The answer is Ross Pearson, the British winner of the Ultimate Fighter. Ross Pearson fights with the nickname The Real Deal. All the others use the extremely unoriginal moniker, The Pitbull. I swear, one day I'm going to write a list of people with the nicknames The Pitbull. Oh man, it's such a bad cringe name. It sounds like the name for a generic wrestler for an independent wrestling show. Canadian fighter Jonathan Goulet is known for his extreme hairstyles and by what nickname? What is Canadian fighter Jonathan Goulet's nickname? It is the Road Warrior. Neither animal or hawk, Goulet has a 22-10 record overall, but is only 4-4 in the UFC octagon. His first fight on the big stage lasted all of 11 seconds when he was knocked silly by Dwayne Ludwig. Tito Ortiz, next question. Tito Ortiz, his first title was the newly created UFC Light Heavyweight Championship, which he won by unanimous decision at UFC 25. What was the name of his opponent in the match? Once again, Tito Ortiz's first title was the newly created UFC Light Heavyweight Championship, which he won by unanimous decision at UFC 25. What was the name of his opponent in the match? So first ever Light Heavyweight bout at UFC 25 for the belt. The answer is Vanderlei Silva. Frank Shamrock retired and vacated his UFC middleweight championship, which was 199 pounds at the time. The division was then renamed the Light Heavyweight Championship Division, and a new title was created. Tito Ortiz and Vanderlei Silva were considered the top 2 contenders at the time, and were chosen to compete for the title on April 14, 2000 at UFC 25. Yeah, if you go on YouTube, type in MMA on points, they have a history of the middleweight, the welterweight, and the light heavyweight belts all having very strange lineages when it comes to their history. Like, who technically was the first ever light heavyweight champion happens to be also the first ever middleweight champion, because the middleweight title, it's so confusing on how you look at the lineage and the history of certain belts in the UFC. Next question, at what UFC did Big John McCarthy join the UFC as the referee? So what was Big John McCarthy's debut in the UFC? Was he there at UFC 1? Was he? The answer was no. UFC 2 was his first time as a UFC referee. He was a referee for 535 fights for the UFC. So for the UFC, came in at UFC 2. So, Kazushi Sakuraba was known as the Gracie Hunter for his dominance over the famous fighting family from Brazil. Which Gracie fought Sakuraba to a decision loss in Pride FC? To a decision loss. The answer is Ryan Gracie. Both victories over Enzo and Hoyler were by submission via Kimura, but neither tapped out, leaving the referee to stop the fights. Royce lasted 90 minutes before his corner threw in the towel. Royce was the only Gracie to gain measure of revenge by defeating Saku 7 years later at K1 Dynamite. So next question, prior to 2009, how many times has Randy been the UFC light heavyweight champion? Again, prior to 2009, how many times has Randy Couture been the UFC light heavyweight champion? The answer is 2. Randy Couture has won the UFC light heavyweight championship twice. First against Theodore Ortiz at UFC 44. Second at UFC 49 against Vitor Belfort. He won the UFC interim light heavyweight belt at UFC 43 against Chuck Liddell, later to unify the belts at UFC 44. So that is noted. In what year did Brock Lesnar win the National Collegiate Athletic Commission or NCAA Heavyweight Championship Wrestling Championship? Okay, that is so trivial. So the answer is 2000, because from what I remember, he joined WWE around 2002, and that's him fresh off college. Then he took a year trying to join the NFL, and then another year later on, to which he was part of Ohio Valley Wrestling, which led to Brock Lesnar joining the WWE around late 2002. So really, he won the championship in 2000. 2001, he trained for the NFL. Then 2002, he trained for the WWE. Then a couple months later, debuted at OVW. So now you know, 2000. Next question. The UFC has produced some great champions. One of the most famous and most controversial is the Huntington Beach bad boy Tito Ortiz. Tito made his debut at UFC 13 on May 30th, 1997 and beat Wes Alberton by TKO. Which fighter fought and defeated Tito Ortiz at the very same event? The UFC has produced many great champions. Tito made his debut at UFC 13 on May 30th, 1997 and beat Wes Alberton by TKO. Which fighter fought and defeated Tito at the very same event? The answer was Guy Mezger. Many believe Tito was cheated in this fight, even though he tapped out to a submission to submission by Mezger by guillotine choke. Earlier in the fight, it seemed Tito had already won the fight when Mezger appeared to tap out himself, but the referee never saw it and was never given the win by submission. That still goes on today for being one of the more bigger controversial fights ever in mixed martial arts. Coming in, and this will be the last question of the day so far. So, UFC legend David Tank Abbott made his debut at UFC 6 on July 14, 1995. Who was his first opponent that night? So what was Tank Abbott's debut opponent? And it probably is somebody that's probably irrelevant nowadays and didn't have a long-lasting career as a MMA fighter. And I'm right. It's John Matwa. When entering the UFC, David Tank Abbott was known by the nickname the Pit Fighter. However, he has never had a pit fight in his life. Which is very funny knowing that. If your nickname is a Pitbull and you don't have a Pitbull, man, I feel sorry for you. He was actually just a very tough, rugged street fighter, but the UFC didn't want it to be known that this street brawler was representing the company, so they came up with the Pit Fighter instead. We'll never see a fighter like Tank Abbott ever exist again in current UFC. Kimbo Slice is the closest thing to a Tank Abbott type fighter, in that he's a street fighter with a reputation of being tough, despite having little to no experience ever when it comes to mixed martial arts or any professional training. And I think at this point now, strangely enough though, I hate to bring it up, but KSI and Logan Paul, it was probably the closest thing we have to two guys with little to no experience at all fighting in a major event. It's strange knowing that's how far we've come, but that's the weird truth. And so I hope you enjoyed that. I hope I tested your overall knowledge of mixed martial arts and the UFC as I call it a day. Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Women's MMA Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'd like to ask that you please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. That really helps up. Also, if you can please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you, and have a good night.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Women's Mixed Martial Arts Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.